Another very important thing to note is making the static poses. So here we've got the actual animation of the function curves. I'm going to go back now just before we start keyframing, because I want to store this whole head as a neutral pose. If I open up my mixer now, I'm going to select here the head null. I'm just going to jump to this here. So here we see the head null. I'm not actually going to store the model null itself. I just need the controlling objects, the deformers. I would really recommend you never keyframe or animate the model null, because sometimes you want to be able to cut the objects from the model, and if you have animation on here, then you won't be able to propagate. So it's very important, make sure that you just do put a null underneath and then use that. So selecting the head, I'm actually going to store the transformations, the current values. Now the reason I'm going to do the transformations is because it's going to take the scale, and put here neutral, and I'm going to do, say, 10 frames, something like that. It's going to take the scale, the rotation and the translation. It will force it into this position irrespective of what I've keyframed. So if I put this here, maybe I've got my clip and I want to say, oh, I've moved some of these things around there. Now because I haven't keyframed that, I've no idea what the original position is. If I've made insert the source, neutral, it's going to jump back to exactly where I need it. So a technique you might want to use is keep this on a negative frame. So do all your animation. If you ever need to reset it, you don't have to worry about envelopes. You just pop it back off the negative frame and then come back again, and you know everything will resync inside here. If I look at the source data, there we go. It's using scaling, rotation, translation. It really will force it back into the right place. Really recommend it on any initial setup, is to use and store a neutral pose. If you go one step further with the source animation, and what you can do is actually save it as a preset. You can also, using the offloading, the storage, you can also offload it as a binary or as a text file or a native binary file and offload it that way as well. So if I were to go in here and say offload it as an XSI binary file, it's probably the best because it's actually very small. I can just do head neutral like that, and as soon as I click on offloaded, it's now, there we go, taken the F-curves and stored it, and I can now reload it back in. If I just need to make sure of that, I can go back into the source. It was just a little refresh there. If I look inside my actions, there we go, head neutral. Now I used a .xsi native binary file, so what I can show you is also using, say, native binary. So I'm going to offload that, there we go. This one I can drop in, drag and drop. This is also a very small file, so if you use the external native binary file, it's probably the smallest and most functional to use.